It was New Year's Eve, and the excitement in the air was palpable. My friends and I decided to celebrate the occasion at my friend Sarah's house, a cozy two-story home nestled in a quiet neighborhood. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, the laughter and cheers filled the air. Around 11:30 p.m., I realized I'd left my phone charger in my car parked down the street. Wanting to capture the perfect New Year's moment, I excused myself and stepped out into the cold night. The neighborhood was unusually quiet, as most residents were indoors, counting down the minutes to New Year. As I approached my car, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The streetlights flickered intermittently, casting shadows across the sidewalks. I quickly retrieved my charger and started back toward Sarah's house when a chill ran down my spine. I glanced over my shoulder and caught sight of a shadowy figure lurking in the darkness. Panic set in, as you can imagine, and I instinctively quickened my pace. The figure seemed to mirror my movements, always a few steps behind me. I rationalized it as paranoia, perhaps fueled by the countless horror stories I'd heard around here. Arriving back at Sarah's house, I dismissed the uneasy feeling, chalking it up to a few nerves. The clock struck midnight, and the cheers erupted as we toasted to the new year. The festive atmosphere temporarily dulled my uneasiness. As the night wore on, some guests left while others stayed to continue the celebration. And around 2 a.m., I decided to call it a night. Sarah offered to let me stay, but I insisted on heading home. I hugged my friends and stepped into the quiet night once more. Upon arriving at my house, the uneasiness returned with vengeance. I approached the front door cautiously, feeling as though eyes were watching me from the shadows behind me. I fumbled with my keys, heart pounding, and finally, the door creaked open. Inside, the silence was deafening. I tiptoed through the darkened home, suddenly aware of every creak and groan that would happen. As I entered my bedroom, a realization struck me. The window was open. I frantically scanned the room, and that's when I saw it. The same shadowy figure from earlier, now standing in the corner of my room. Panic surged through me as I stumbled backwards, knocking over a chair. The intruder turned towards me, revealing a face masked by the darkness. Fear gripped me as I sprinted out the house, slamming the door behind me. I didn't stop until I reached my neighbor's home, pounding on the door until they answered. The police were finally called, but by the time they arrived, the intruder was long gone. It was New Year's Eve, and the vibrant celebration in the city had reached its peak. The streets of New York were alive with laughter, cheers, and the occasional burst of fireworks. I decided to ring in the new year at a friend's party, reveling in the excitement and merriment. As the clock struck midnight, I bid farewell to my friends and stepped outside into the night air. The city, usually bustling with activity, was now quiet. Most revelers had found their way home, continuing the festivities in the warmth of their houses. Walking alone, I couldn't help but feel a sense of vulnerability in the deserted streets. The glow of streetlights cast shadows, and the distant sound of my footsteps echoed in the silence. I told myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but then something started to linger around. About halfway through my journey home, I became acutely aware of someone behind me. I quickened my pace, and so did the mysterious presence trailing me. However fast I would go, they would too. I stole a glance over my shoulder, catching sight of the shadowy figure a few paces back. My heart began to race. I tried to convince myself that it was merely a coincidence, a fellow celebrator heading in the same direction. Yet, every turn I took, every street I traversed, the footsteps echoed persistently behind me. Panic crept in as I realized this was no longer a mere coincidence. Desperate to shake off my pursuer, I took a detour through the dimly lit alleyways and deserted side streets. While probably not the best idea, I started to think that it was working. The followers still continue to mirror my every move, growing bolder with each passing minute. As I approached my apartment building, I started to weigh my options. Should I confront the person following me? Or should I make a mad dash for the safety in my home? The decision was made for me when at the final stretch, the stranger emerged. Fear paralyzed me as I fumbled for my keys, glancing over my shoulder at the unknown figure now closing the distance. The harsh clinking of keys against a cold metal lock seemed deafening. I pushed the door open, rushing inside, and slammed it shut, gasping for breath. From the safety of my apartment, I peered through the peephole, heart pounding. That person lingered outside for a moment before disappearing into the night. I never discovered the identity or intentions of the person who followed me that New Year's Eve, but I'm sure that they didn't have anything good to tell me. The final hours of 2022 were ticking away, and I was eagerly anticipating the joy and festivities that New Year's promised. My friends and I had gathered at a lively party, clinking glasses and laughing as we counted down the minutes to midnight. Little did I know that night would take a horrible turn. Amidst the cheers and confetti, I received an unfamiliar text on my phone. The message was cryptic, a string of numbers and symbols that made no immediate sense to me. I dismissed it as a wrong number or a friend playing a prank. However, as the night progressed, more messages arrived, each one more ominous than the last. The text spoke of events that hadn't occurred yet, as if the sender had a glimpse into my future. The details were disturbingly specific, describing personal experiences, encounters, and tragedies that awaited me in the coming year. I read the messages predicting the unexpected twist that my life would take in the next year. Attempting to rationalize, I assumed it was a tasteless joke or a prank by someone who knew me well. I asked my friends if they were behind the unnerving messages, but their genuine confusion ruled them out. As the clock struck midnight, the texts intensified. First, I received the congratulations on making it to the new year, and then the sender seemed to be happy about the fear they were instilling in me. I tried to block the number, but the messages persisted somehow, as if the sender had found a way to circumvent my attempts to shut them out. I started to contemplate the legitimacy of the messages. Were they a sick joke, or was there something deeper behind it? Unable to shake the growing uneasiness, I decided to leave the party early and head home. The text continued to flood my phone, detailing events that seemed impossible to predict. As the calendar year flipped to January 1st, 2023, the texts abruptly ceased. The promises of a grim future seemed to vanish with the arrival of the new year. Still, the psychological headgame that was played on me that night makes me wonder exactly who was behind it.